I'm here today with my friend Jeremy Slate, and we're going to talk about a few things. Jeremy, how long have you been acting?
How long have I been acting? Since 1958. So I guess about 37 years.
How did you get your start?
Well, that was sort of a little far out because actually I was living with my family in Lima, Peru, working for the Grace Line, steamship line. And we had a semi-professional theater group there. And I joined the theater group. And in my second season there, won the Peruvian equivalent of the Tony Award, the Tiwanaku. And a friend of mine said, "You shouldn't be working for a steamship line, you should be an actor." And I said, "Well, how could I be an actor? You have to make a living being an actor. You know, I have a family and everything." He said, "Well, you can make a living being an actor." For some weird reason, I did not understand that. I thought anybody who was acting was doing it just for fun.
No.
And he said, "Well, think of all these rich movie stars." And I thought, well, he's got a point there. So I was interested enough to carry through on it. And when I went back to New York with the company, I started acting classes at night in New York City. And went for a year and then got a small part in a Broadway play, and things just went from there. So if you ask me where I got started off Broadway.
Off Broadway.
In fact, that's what I had on my resume all the time. They'd say, "Off Broadway." They'd say, "Oh, okay, where off Broadway?" And I'd say, "Well, pretty far off, all the way down in Peru, right?" But that's how it started.
So in your career, you've done many things, from commercials, soap operas, movies. Do you want to talk a little
Well,
about
I started out in commercials, actually, and when I left W.R. Grace and Company to become an actor full-time, at that moment I had a half a dozen commercials on the air. Then I became when I came back to Hollywood, I became a television and film actor and worked at that intensely for 10 years, from 1960 to 1970. I seemed to work every week. It seemed that way back then anyway, in both television and feature films, and plays once in a while. And that went from 1960 to 1970. And 1970 is when I joined Sandstone, and that totally changed my life. And in fact, Sally and I both said, "Let's drop out." And so we did. We tuned in, turned on, and dropped out. And for the next 10 years did nothing but travel around the country and around the world, I guess we could say, in both our motorhome and together as a couple of roaming hippies. And then in 1979, when I literally ran out of money and had to go back to work, I left Sally, who wanted to remain in San Francisco, of course, and went down to LA to look for work again, and finally got myself into a soap opera in New York City in early 1980 and late 1979, One Life to Live for ABC. And I was on that for 5 years, actually 8 years all told, before they stopped using my character. So I wound up with two careers. I wound up with a career that consisted of films and television between the years 1960 and 1970, most of which were in black and white. And then I wound up in 1980 being on a soap opera for 5 years. So I have two different audiences. You know, people see me and I've had people come up to me and say, "Wow, you're in color," which means that they'd never seen me in anything but black and white. You know, so actually I've had two careers, two audiences of people who recognize me. That's always been fun.
Lately, what have you been doing?
Well, the most recent film I was in was The Lawnmower Man, and that was about 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago even. So I haven't worked in films very much, and in fact haven't worked in television very much, because I really have a hard time spending any time at all in LA, living up here where I do. And so for the last 8 years, I've been a theater director, and I've worked in theater, mostly with the Big Sur Players theater group, which my son Jeremiah and his life partner Kim founded 9 years ago, and which most recently was the sponsor of the first annual Big Sur Jazz Festival 2 weeks ago, which was a fabulous success, and which will be going on every year from now on.